should we get into the end of the Marvel Universe?
Is that what we're calling it? The collapse.
Well, ever since Endgame hit cinemas, people have been like, the downfall of Marvel is here. And I never bought into it. But these rumours do not make for pretty reading.
They don't.
So, Variety have written what I think can only be described as a hit piece.
Yeah, fair.
Because, my God, they are out for blood. We've got the cliff notes here of some of the big issues that cropped up with it, and it's just it screams of desperation and confusion and fear. It reads like DCEU 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's gives the vibe of people in charge being like, oh my God, we've got this huge thing from it, like Endgame. Like everyone's loving Marvel, and then it starts to slip, and they go, oh, it's fine, we can catch this, and then they're not, and they go full panic mode, and it's starting to fall, and they just don't know how to stop it. So
it does now feel like they're throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
Yes, it does, which is worrying.
So, Mahershala Ali was reportedly ready to leave the Blade project over the script. In some versions of the script, he'd reportedly been relegated to the 4th lead. Apparently, he's been convinced to stay on the project. They've brought the Logan writer, Michael Green, on to restart from scratch.
We talked about this a while back when the script first got scrapped, and we were like, we reckoned Kevin probably got it, was like, the fuck is this? Realized, okay, we need to start. Like, he'd passed it off and realized, no, this isn't good, we need to sort this. What I think now actually happened was script got written, Mahershala Ali was like, the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, not doing it.
Like, this isn't the Blade that I signed up for. Kevin gets wind of that and goes code red mode, like, oh shit. And then obviously putting the Logan writer on, I think, is a smart play, strong choice. And they've potentially saved that project, but I think this screams at the bigger issue of like, Kevin was in charge of everything pretty much up until Endgame. Like, he oversaw it all. And then obviously it was getting bigger, so he had to start, whether it was his choice, but I'm starting to think maybe Disney kind of pushed him that you need to hand some things off. And he started to, and it's just like the wrong people got in the wrong places.
I don't understand how you fuck this up so badly.
Because people like to make things more complicated than they need to be.
When Mahershala Ali got cast as Blade, basically the entire internet went, that is a phenomenal casting, this film cannot miss.
Yeah, everyone was like, we are getting Blade again, this is going to be sick.
Then they announced, we've got Deadpool, we're going to do Deadpool 3 still as an 18. So instantly what we've got is we've got Disney who want to get into these 18 rated films, and they've got Deadpool and Blade ready to go. 2 of the most iconic adult comic book characters.
Yep.
Locked and loaded, ready to go. We're like, this is going to be perfect. You just have Blade turn up, cut the fuck out of a load of vampires. It's not complicated.
The story is also there of like, we've had so many things over the last few years in Marvel of like the jokey mention of vampires. It's like the precedent's set that maybe vampires exist in the MCU. All you need to do is like, oh, Blade's been around and keeping them under control, and just have a film of him hunting vampires.
Yeah. You can absolutely have him been Blade for 10-15 years. And that's the reason, because also with everything else in the Avengers film getting such a high level, we know that street level crime fighting has gone to shit in like what we see. You could have had it so this story was centered around Blade coming back from the blip, seeing that the population of vampires has got a bit too brave because they're not scared of anyone anymore, and he's got to do some culling. He's got to stop the Lord of the Vampires who's got a bit too powerful
Yeah.
now. And he's just got to get that crowd under control. You don't have to make it more complicated than that. Because guess what? It's going to be, you make it horror based, you make it a bit spooky and scary, you
Yeah.
make it gory, and you just let him chop heads off vampires.
And then you've got Black Knight from the end of Eternals that they just pull that in.
Yeah.
Things tied
Like,
in, job's good un.
I especially when they did such a good job with Werewolf by Night.
Yeah. Do you know what this?
Like,
It really does scream to me that like Kevin's hand was forced to pass things off, and Disney put people in places. And obviously Kevin had last say, and all these things keep hitting Kevin's table, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?"
it's either that or he's lost his touch and is out of touch. I
That,
don't know what it is,
I
but
find it
it's one of them two things.
hard to believe. I think, as most things, execs put pressure on the creatives lose the control that they had, and then it goes to shit. Happens all the time. But it doesn't stop there.
No. Now, this is where it really starts to stink of desperation and panic.
Yes.
Marvel has apparently considered moving away from Kang due to the reception of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, as well as Major's off-screen issues. This potentially includes pivoting to Doctor Doom as the big bad of the multiverse saga. Now, what I will say is, I wasn't a million miles away from this idea, but in a less
I was
panicky
gonna
way.
bring this. I was gonna bring this up. That we discussed the idea a few times across different shows that come out, that there's a lot of weird little hints that maybe Doctor Doom exists and he's in the background doing shit.
Yeah, and the idea of Kang being this big scary guy, you get to Secret War, and about halfway through, Kang just gets dealt with instantly by Doom, and then you're like, surprise, Doom's the bad guy.
Yeah.
That could have worked for Doom being a minor problem at the big end of Secret War that people barely survive, and then he's the main bad guy for the next saga. But them trying to make him just the big bad of the multiverse saga, there's not enough time. We don't even have a Fantastic Four cast yet.
Do you know? And do you know what's wild? Like, they say the reception of Ant-Man, but I would say no one after watching Ant-Man said that Kang was a bad villain. Everyone was like, Jonathan Majors is amazing as Kang. He's this big scare. Like, but the film itself was poor, and the visuals let it down, which we can get onto later.
Yeah.
But like, I don't feel like anyone had an issue with the character of Kang. He felt scary. He felt powerful. We got the setup of there's lots of them, so this is going to be an issue.
Yeah. Kang was not the problem with that film.
No. Obviously, like what you said, this came from them kind of around when Ant-Man flopped, and then obviously right after Ant-Man is when Jonathan Majors was arrested. And everyone obviously then said, are they going to recast him? What's going to happen? The future of MCU. Doesn't surprise me that they would then have to start thinking about, do we pivot off Kang? Like, different options.
It's crazy to me, though, that pivot was such a big discussion, because Kang is the most easily recastable character. His entire thing is there's a billion of him from across the multiverse. Up until that point, we'd seen 2 different versions.
Yeah, unless the only reason I can think they were so strong on pivot is if there's something in a contract that's like Jonathan Majors is cast as Kang, and it's like they can't.
I get that,
but I
but
don't
as a
think there would
general
be.
rule, if they're gonna recast him because of off-screen behavior, that probably voids any protections
it
he
probably
gets in the
does,
contract
but
anyway. Because let's be clear here, Disney actors, which are what Marvel actors are, have clauses in their contract about the way they have to behave.
Oh yeah.
So even just being arrested, even if he did or didn't do anything wrong, and this case is still in court, we don't have anywhere near enough information. There's probably enough for them to get rid of him if they want to anyway.
Do you know what I think? And this goes back to execs again, because the only reason I keep bringing up like the execs of the issue is because Marvel got so big as a moneymaker, it gets like the execs want to control it because they want their money. It wouldn't surprise me if they're too blind to understand that people's issues with Ant-Man wasn't Kang and it was how the story and the
Yeah.
visuals, because they don't see what they did for that film as an issue. But it's like they're like, oh well, everyone hated it. We must move away from the main villain. It's got go find us another
Yeah.
villain. Focus someone else.
Do you know
And
what? Do you know what this stinks of though?
go
Because
on.
if we actually think about Marvel historically,
Mm.
only one villain has ever really had multiple appearances, and that was Loki, and he ended up not being a villain by the end.
Yeah, before like Thanos then started having all
But
his.
even then, Thanos was only there for 2 films, and that was one story. He just had cameos up until that. He wasn't even a
True.
villain yet. He was
True.
just lurking in the background. Every other villain we got
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
And this just reeks of, oh, we've used him now. That film wasn't good. That must mean the villain was the problem. We
Yeah.
can't use him again. It's like, no, the biggest criticism of Infinity Saga Marvel was that good villains got wasted and left to die for no fucking reason.
Yeah, there's and like all used in even in these new ones, like we've had villains used in such poor ways for what they could be. Like look at Thor. We had the God Butcher, and he didn't really get to do much God butchering, and
And then
then
he died.
was yeah, and it's like, well, that was a waste
Yeah.
because Kang was their focus, and it's not good things to be coming out of Marvel when everyone's already got a spotlight on them for the films aren't doing great and everyone like the casual fans have been lost and people are complaining there's too many things going on.
I don't want to have to be relying on Prime Video solely for good superhero content.
We shouldn't have to be, but it is going that
Exactly.
way at the moment.
Yeah, and when we've got such a long wait before James Gunn's DCU is ready to go properly,
Mm.
it's I don't get nervous, but I'm getting a bit shaky, getting a bit worried. And up next on the execs are shitting their pants and don't know what to do.
Just want the money back.
Yeah, there is a growing idea being batted around to bring back the original Avengers cast, including resurrecting Black Widow and Iron Man.
Screams, we just want our money, and this made us money.
When did it stop working?
Oh, when you
Black
killed off
Widow
two.
and Iron Man died. Okay, so we need to bring them back, and the money comes back. Like,
I will only accept those two characters with their original actor and actress returning if it was in Secret Wars and it's like they've plucked them from a different timeline, essentially.
variants where they look identical but are slightly different.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
I would have accepted that, and that would have been a very cool return for RDJ and Scarlett Johansson. I think it would have been very well received. To just pull them back and be like, oh, hi, they're back. Here's an Avengers film. It's like, what?
Well, yeah, and you've got to remember if Secret War comes out in like 2027, that's 4 years' time. That's like 9 years since Endgame.
Yeah.
So, like, that's like a substantial enough period of time where you're like, fuck it, RDJ's back. That's lit.
Just making me like a bit of an older Iron Man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pure panic.
Yeah.
And going back to what we were saying about the shit show that was Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's now come out as part of this that VFX artists, once
The timeline got
Ant-Man and the Wasp got pulled up in the release schedule,
yeah.
VFX artists out of nowhere were crunched to work 14 hours a day with no overtime pay, sometimes 6 days a week.
It's just and the
2020 fucking 3.
the problem with as well is like people will probably say, why didn't these studios just say no? But it's not like when you're a studio and you get like a Marvel contract, that will be a huge book of work for your
100%.
studio. And without it, people don't have jobs. And while they could have tried to negotiate them to pay them more, Disney will have just turned around. If you don't want to do this, we'll go to a different studio. And it's like, and also when situations like this where they're told to crunch, it's like, if you're already halfway through, it's kind of just like, well, we're already in the thick of it now. We've got to push through and finish it. You're not
Yeah.
like these artists aren't going to abandon a project midway through because they're not getting paid correctly. Because while yes, it's a Marvel, like they're still invested in what they're creating, whether it's their thing or not. Like they're invested in putting in that artistic
Yeah.
work and creating it. They're not going to just abandon something they've worked on for 6 months. But they have every right to complain.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely crazy.
and it explains why some of the VFX felt weird, why the visuals just didn't feel to hit right, why MODOK looked weird in times, things
Yeah.
like that. Like, yeah.
Just treat workers like people, for the love of God. I understand that we do this weekly, and we would probably get a bit anxious if like stuff didn't come out as consistently.
Hmm.
But I would rather us have to go, okay, we can only do it fortnightly so
Yeah.
that we've got enough to talk about, and or even monthly in a really worst case scenario, which I don't think we'd ever get to. Um, so that artists can work at a comfortable, respectable pace
Hmm.
to do the work to a high quality and not have to work outrageous hours in outrageous conditions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand this obsession with doing it quicker when it looks like shit. Like, there are genuinely people now talking about CGI from the early 2010s that looks just as good, at, if not better, because them artists were just given time.
Well, yeah.
That's literally the only difference. The technology's better now.
It's like the visual effects can be better, but studios don't want to give them the time to do it properly.
Yeah, they'd rather them just do it quickly.
Yes.
I'm
Wild.
really, really just I'm over it.
I hope that the for the nerd in us and the podcast, like what we enjoy from MCU, I hope they can right the ship and get back on the right footing. I worry that they're just going to make wrong decisions. Is my worry, and it's going to get worse.
I reckon they get me in to take it over. Step aside. I've got it. But it's fine. Disney can't afford to pay their VFX artists or their actors fairly because they're too busy spending 8.61 billion to take full control over Hulu. So we discussed in the past how Hulu's a bit of a weird one. It's part owned by Disney, part owned by Comcast.
Mm.
So Disney are basically buying out Comcast part of the company for 8.61 billion. How dare they, when they're in the middle of a strike negotiation with the actors, claiming they can't afford to pay the actors, go out there and take full control over another streaming service for that amount of money?
Do you know what I think this is in partly is them? You've got to look at it this way, right? We know the man, the myth, the legend, Bob Iger, wants to sell to Apple. Like that's his goal, is he wants to sell to Apple. What makes Disney Plus and Disney like look good on the books? You've got prices going up. There's a worry that maybe people will cancel subscriptions. They're talking about password sharing and stuff. So their numbers of subscribers may drop. But you know what looks good? Buying the rest of Hulu and all the Hulu subscriptions and all that, all those numbers suddenly boost and make Disney look way better on the books. Makes it way more sellable. Oh, we've got this huge catalog of stuff now. Like, way more stuff. Like, it just screams to me that they're buying up stuff to make them look better on the books, to make them look better to sell.
Yeah.
While meanwhile trying to be like, no, we don't want to deal with you wanting better pay because we don't want to be the ones that have to do that because we want out.
Yeah.
But like you say, to do this while they're in negotiations it's a choice. It's a PR choice, and
I
I
don't know who thought
feel
it was a good idea.
I feel sorry for the Disney PR department because they're ordinary people and they're just doing their jobs. And the Disney execs are really just making them work for their money at the moment.
They're not making it easy for them.
No, they're really
But
not.
just even daring to consider a deal worth more than 10 million while you're squabbling over 0.03% of your global annual revenue for the people who would make the content to go on the platform
Mm,
is fucking outrageous.
it's wild. It's wild.
Bit of interesting news. I didn't know if we throw it in, but I'm interested by it, so I
I'm
assumed you might be
excited.
as well. We've
Been
got a
waiting for
trailer for
this.
a new Planet of the Apes film, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Well, this is.
Is this the fourth film in the reboot, or is this the
I
third?
thought this is the third.
It's been so long since we've had the last
Yeah,
one, I feel now.
I'm pretty sure this is the. Uh,
So you had Rise of,
you had
which was
Rise of, you had
2011.
War. Oh wait, no, this is the fourth one then.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
you had
yeah,
Rise of, Dawn of, and then War for the Planet of the Apes. What year was that?
2017.
So it's been 6 years since the
So
last
this
one.
is this is the wild thing, right? Because I always thought this was going to be a trilogy. The way they were setting it up, it was like we had Dawn of, we had Rise of, and I was like, oh, it's going to be Kingdom, like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or whatever, or just Planet of the Apes, and that's
Yeah.
going to be how. Then we got War, and I was like, well, this still feels like they need to finalize it as like the planet is now the Planet of the Apes, kind of setting up the idea from the original films where they went to a planet that was Planet of the Apes. So I mean, I've
But
been excited and waiting for this, but it's been
so
a
this
while.
seems to be a bit. It seems to be a bit like of a time jump here. So
A little
many
bit,
years
yeah.
after the reign of Caesar, a young ape goes on a journey that will lead him to question everything he's been taught about the past and make choices that will define the future for apes and humans alike. And in the trailer, it seems to be like humans have become kind of feral wild animals.
Well, and gone into hiding essentially.
Yeah, but it seems to be the orangutan from the original still seems to be cutting about, or at least a
Yeah,
similar-ish character. And they seem to be kind of like of the opinion we should help them.
yeah. I get the impression from the trailer it's the original orangutan guy, and probably because of he has memory of the time before,
Yeah,
um, realizes that humans aren't all bad and that we shouldn't have like tried to wipe them out. And
yeah,
Caesar probably educates this new young ape on what happened in the past and how what you're taught nowadays is all lies, as happens with history a lot of the time.
yeah.
Um,
Revisionist history written by the winners.
but
Winners have the winners of wars have never done anything wrong, and don't let anyone convince you
mm,
otherwise.
but I'm very excited. Like the first three have been amazing films.
Planet of
Uh,
the Apes is a really cool franchise that always reinvents itself and comes
yeah,
back. I
that's
like I watched the originals like years ago because my
mm,
granddad really enjoyed them. I was like, these look kind of like shit, but also fucking brilliant. I kind of love them.
yeah. They had funky visuals, but they were solid concept of films. And then
Yeah.
when they brought out the first one, the Dawn of the
Well,
Planet of the
we
Apes,
got another reboot in our time, which was like 2000,
yeah, it was
where
weird.
he was like an astronaut that got like sent to a different
Yeah,
planet. And then that one didn't do particularly well. Um, and then we got a reboot properly,
yeah. With
which was
the
so
idea of it
good.
all humans got extinct. Like you could see
Yeah,
where it was always building to. So it's been very like exciting each time a new one's come out to see the
yeah,
next.
very very cool. Um, and I'm very intrigued by this one. It's coming
Mm,
out like next year,
something like that. Yeah.
so it'll be interesting. I've just googled the 2001 Planet of the Apes film.
Mm,
I never realized how yoked this film was. So Tim Burton directed it.
mm,
Mark Wahlberg was the lead.
mm.
Helena Bonham Carter was, of course, in it because it's Tim Burton film,
Uh huh.
and Tim Roth was in it. Did he voice one of the monkeys? Maybe he
Maybe.
must have done. But yeah, so like there was just the one of them for whatever reason. I always quite liked that film, but I've not seen it in a while. Maybe it wasn't that good. But yeah, I'm well excited to get another one, and hopefully this leads to another solid Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Yeah.
Right, now we've got some real sad news. Some real sad news. Because this was a project I know both of us were very excited for.
Yeah.
So this was originally supposed to come out early 2024. But The Penguin, which is of course set in Matt Reeves' Batman universe, has apparently been delayed until fall 2024 due to studios being greedy scum. The problem with this delay is, if this doesn't get resolved soon, that is still going to be delayed further. So this is it's now just going to come out in full 2024. It's the earliest this is now going to come out is full 2024.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to start to see the big problems
next year
from
the strikes,
scum refusing to pay actors.
Yeah, it's
so in 6 months' time, when all of you people are sat there going, "Oh, there's nothing on TV. I'm so bored. I'm having to rewatch 1,000,001 things." Remember that the studios could have just paid actors fairly, and they would have been able to get back to doing what they love doing.
Yeah,
but instead they wanted to try and keep all the pie for themselves.
It's such a shame. The only little positive I hold out is that between now and then, it gives them a little bit more time to figure out getting Warner Brothers stuff to the UK.
True.
Like, figure it out, boys. You've got a bit more time and we can maybe watch The Penguin properly.
Hopefully that dent to their bottom line incentivizes them to find a way to get it to the rest of the world so they can earn money.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And then I separate this out from the rest of the Marvel stuff. Because this was in different reports and is more of a rumor.
Yeah.
But does also make a bit of sense.
Also
cool. There is a lot of rumors, discussion, information being batted around suggesting that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine may be the dual leads for Avengers Secret War. With the idea being that the TVA at the end of Loki starts building an army to fight against the Kang variants. But instead of just from one timeline, they want to build an army to just fight Kang in general. So they go to different universes to find their best heroes. And Tobey Maguire and Hugh Jackman are the best heroes from their world.
Yeah.
And Tom Holland would lead the MCU's world.
That'd be pretty cool.
I am willing to concede that it is nostalgia bait.
Probably.
And it is playing on our emotions. And it is not 100% necessary, and it is just there to get a cheap thrill and put people's butts in seats. But I do have a counterpoint. It will be the greatest film ever fucking made. I want it.
It would be sick to get this.
One last hurrah.
Yeah, I guess in a way, it comes down to how believable this actually ends up being. Comes down to what happens in Deadpool 3.
Yes.
And
we heard rumors that Miss Minutes was supposed to be in Deadpool 3. Them rumors are like 6 months old.
Okay.
And if you remember, the Miss Minutes Twitter account, which is an official account, was tweeting at the Deadpool 3 Twitter account.
Potentially
when they announced that he was coming into the MCU.
There was obviously said about that the Logan film is still canon to what goes on in Deadpool 3. So it's like whatever goes on there with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is like, I think we'll decide what if we see him again in Secret Wars, or if they do something with that story and that's where his story now ends and Hugh Jackman it was his last hurrah then. Maybe. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's come back having so much fun and like, well, we've got this idea, and he's like, yeah, fuck it. Like, I want to keep doing this,
Yeah.
maybe. But it's an
I
interesting rumor.
I am I am 100% okay for them to go all in on the nostalgia bait and get all the people that we loved growing up in on this film, as
Mm.
long as they leave it at that there, and they don't keep trying to use the people
Yeah,
we grew up with for a cheap thrill.
yeah, I
Spider-Man:
do
No Way
agree.
Home, I was okay with it because they brought the Spider-Man together.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackman in Deadpool 3 absolutely makes sense. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are really close friends. We know that the Deadpool films take place in the Fox universe where
hmm,
Hugh Jackman was Wolverine. That's fine.
yeah,
Secret Invasion, bringing everything together for the big reset or whatever,
yeah,
and it's a multiversal story. I'm okay for it being done there. After that, no more. You
yeah.
keep the
See,
actors you keep, you recast who you recast, you trim off all of the shit that's happened before, and you do one thing.
I'm with you. I'm all for Secret Wars being a way for them to bring people back for the nostalgia, for essentially that last hurrah for a lot of the characters or actors and actresses as those characters, and then yeah, after that, that's it, no more. Like I said earlier, I'm totally down with them bringing back RDJ as Iron Man in Secret War. It makes sense. It works. It doesn't ruin his story. The whole idea of the Secret War is like pulling all these people together. It's like it would be very cool. And it wouldn't surprise me with the success of kind of the Spider-Man and having all three of them and how much that was loved. The idea of bringing back heroes in the right way, I think it wouldn't surprise me if we do see something like that for Secret War. Whether it is exactly it does have Tobey Maguire and Hugh Jackman as the main lead, like who knows. But I do think we will get some old school people get returns in that film.
I I hope so. I hope so.